welcome everyone. It's wonderful to be with everyone this evening. We're going to go over some concepts, so hopefully those concepts make sense to you. Towards the end, we have some experiments that we'll be doing. So we're going to go ahead and share our screen. The title of tonight's presentation is Finding Our Way. As we go through life, all of us are faced with decisions, challenges, and the many and varied aspects that make up our lives. Somewhere along the way, those of you who are watching this presentation felt a tug of wanting, a wanting to know more about the how and why life came to be and how it works. We see our bodies function autonomously. We see the heavens move autonomously. This naturally makes us question the source of this invisible guidance. Through the jagged stones, life peeks through, a subtle emergence seeking light. What invisible force lies within this great mystery of conscious life? What is life seeking? What is seeking life? What you seek is also seeking you. Of course, that's a quote by Rumi. So this is a video I took a couple mornings ago as the sun was just about to rise. So it's about 40 seconds. Let's just sit back and enjoy it. Nature is truly amazing. We are privileged to be conscious of this autonomic relationship, and we wonder if there is a higher form that is conscious of us, that maybe that higher form is the invisible force that lies beneath this great moving mystery of life. As we project into this world with our consciousness, we sometimes ask for or pray for guidance from a perceived higher power. Besides prayers, how might we make the best decisions to better attune with this guiding force? Indeed, we are each finding our way in this world towards something. Thus, somewhere in our minds, we are conscious of a goal that we feel needs to be accomplished, but often seems to remain just beyond our reach. How might we find this goal? Through this presentation, hopefully, we will come to recognize that we are all searching for unknown goals in life through a common thread of awareness or light that has been gifted to us. We will further observe that our consciousness is growing. And part of the proof of this is that we actually pay attention to and acknowledge our consciousness and conscious events that surround us. Knowing this, perhaps we might build a greater compassion towards one another and a more loving, humanistic approach to life. A case in point is our acknowledgement of the summer solstice. This actually occurred this past Tuesday. This is a time in the Northern Hemisphere where we experience the longest day and the greatest duration of the sun's light. As human beings, we are privileged to have consciously understood this earthly occurrence and experienced the selfless nature of our planet and the changing of her seasons. Somewhere along the path of cosmic evolution, our planet developed a rhythmic wobble that allows for this occurrence. And somewhere along the path of cosmic evolution, we gain the wherewithal to capture, witness, and celebrate this event. This planetary wobble gives us the illusion that the sun moves north and south upon the horizon as we travel through the year, shining at its greatest brilliance and strength at this time. Symbolically, it is a time for the greatest revelations of knowledge to be revealed to us, and a reminder of the ebb and flow of inspiration and spiritual desire that we experience during life. It is indeed a most auspicious time for finding the keys to inner wisdom, as the title of our symposium suggests. Because of its symbolic significance to our unfolding consciousness, civilizations throughout the ages have celebrated this time of year with monuments and ceremony. It is important that we give homage to these attachments to our human condition that we find in nature, so that we actively learn that we are connected to her and work in harmony with her rhythms. Our celebrations are a symbol of our growing understanding of the evolution of the blending of matter and consciousness. Thus, we find ourselves here together this evening, paying homage to this special moment, and in so doing, searching for a wisdom that will guide us to a greater understanding of our purpose within the movements of the cosmic. While we made a choice to be here, it is certainly not by chance that we are together this evening. We are linked to a mystic chain that binds all of us together on this path. Mysticism is a fundamental part of human existence. It is the thread within our thoughts that is aware of that invisible guiding impulse. That mystical thread, excuse me one second, that mystical thread reveals itself to us as a yearning for a fulfillment that we are not even sure of, but know is there. As we go through our varied experiences in life, we often wonder exactly what it is we are searching for. We innately feel we are here for a reason, and we know there is a fulfillment to this existence we go through. We feel it like a promise inside of us. We experience great satisfaction in the so-called simple things of life, in the love of another, the bonds of family, the joy that a kind act brings when we are able to help someone or some situation, the knowledge to celebrate holidays and events such as the solstice. These events and those feelings are subtle, seldom involve material rewards, yet still bring a true satisfaction. Each of us is on a mission of finding our way towards that most illustrious something that we get a small glimpse of with these small yet significant experiences, the results of which transcend material passions. It may only be a feeling, but it is a strong enough feeling to keep guiding us forward. All of us are very familiar with our consciousness. It is just always here with us as the tool we use to go out and explore our mutual experience, to relate to each other and to our world. Without consciousness, we simply would not be. Yet we find it very difficult to isolate exactly what consciousness is. Scientists most often study the brain, as many feel that consciousness is derived from and a part of brain function. And while we certainly can find measurable ways to monitor brain activity and relate certain bodily and mental functions to this activity, we are still unable to pinpoint consciousness. Studying the brain, we get signals, We see and can create stimulation, but we do not see the conscious experience. Only you can remember and know of your conscious state. We all experience the same things in this world, but each of us experience all of these things differently and from a different perspective. We cannot capture this experience with electrodes. And while we might measure similar brainwave reactions to stimuli, we know that the actual experience to such stimuli will be consciously unique. You alone are the expert of your consciousness and none other. Thus, a common question among scientists is, how do the waters of the brain get turned into the wine of consciousness? To actually pinpoint what consciousness is a hard problem in the field of scientific inquiry. How does consciousness fit into the world we live in, they ask. We seem to project consciousness into a world that is, from a scientific point of view, non-conscious, or at the very least, not conscious in the way we experience consciousness. We see vibrations and movement. We see measurable changes in things, but our consciousness seems to differ from those things. Human awareness and experience, then, are the ultimate challenge of human scientific study and remains elusive to researchers and, for that matter, to most of us. From a mystical point of view, we are a spiritual energy housed in a body, which we call our temple. And through the marriage of body, mind, and soul, we get to go out into this world and experience it. Our waking or objective state seems normal and natural to us because we come here to this earth plane to learn and evolve through this state. We come from a spiritual state, and we will return to that spiritual state. This physical realm is for us to experience the material world, learn from it, and to spiritualize it through the evolution of our thought and our conscious recognition of the divine's hand at work here. This is why the objective process is so strong to us. We began this incarnation living in this awareness. Fortunately, we have also grown in our knowledge such that we can be aware of our growth and the illusions that we build and surround ourselves with. Consciousness expands when we recognize her. Thus, our life is beyond special. It is a gift and a great privilege. The path and the yearning that guides our seeking comes from our need to remember what we are. As we go through life, we therefore grow inwardly in many ways. Our awareness expands through new experiences. And we are cognizant that with experience, our consciousness develops. It is important that we recognize such growth because spiritual growth seems to require the use of our will to refocus our consciousness upon it. We can look back in history and have a great appreciation for the work that many of the great minds have created and left for us. They put forth their work and efforts to make sure this information made it into the thought and learning patterns of humanity. In whatever environment they found themselves in, they found a way to express the ideas that came to them and to reveal the so-called secrets of the world, oftentimes going against long-held beliefs, not only to express these ideas in private, but to publicly risk their reputations, even their lives, for the advancement of human thought. One such great thinker was René Descartes, a prominent French scientist, philosopher, and Rosicrucian. In his work, Meditations on First Philosophy, He promoted theories regarding the dual nature of human beings. He stated that if there is thinking, there must be something doing the thinking, and that something seems to be separate from the body. We all know that we have a body, but we also know that there's a thinking going on somewhere beyond the body. Descartes created what he called a separability argument that went something like this. If we can clearly and distinctly conceive of one thing existing without another thing existing, then the two are distinct things. As an example, think of a person living in a home. We know the person exists and we know the home exists. But can we conceive of this person without the home? Of course we can. This person could be living anywhere else if they chose. The home could be empty, or it could house other persons. In other words, we can conceive of the person and the home as separate entities. Through this separability argument, we can therefore conceive clearly and distinctly ourselves as a thinking thing existing, and our body as a separate thing existing, even though they exist at the moment together. Ultimately, we can conceive of ourselves as existing separate from our bodies. Therefore, we, whatever we are distinct from our bodies. To put it into different wording, bodies take up space and don't think. Thinking things, souls or minds, are not spread out in space, and their essence is thinking. Descartes was certain that our conscious existence is not just a fleeting flicker upon the face of the cosmic. Our living journey is the opportunity for consciousness to contemplate infinity and the infinite possibilities that seem to project to us. While these projections seem to make their way to us from out there, our ultimate experience of them is exclusively inside in our consciousness. Further, our ultimate experiences are mostly non-visible. Joy, sadness, defeat, love, bewilderment, enlightenment, inspiration. These inner experiences of our world are not just a solitary finite journey through the infinite to provide just a brief glimpse of what the infinite might be. They are experiences that our soul personality carries with it on its journey towards an understanding of the divine creator. Ultimately, to bring all of humanity to a reunion with that creator. The universe is mental. No experience simply vanishes when we are gone. They are stored in the mind of the cosmic. In the middle of the road of my life, I awoke in a dark wood where the true way was wholly lost. And of course, that's from Dante in the Divine Comedy. As he alludes, we sometimes realize that some things we followed previously turn out not to be what we thought they were. In his extraordinary poetic work, Dante alludes often to this directive mystery of life. Who or what are we really? We have ultimate clues before us that we are something more than a physical presence. Therefore, what is the essence of a person? Is it physical or is it non-physical? Our teachings state that we live in consciousness. Is this really possible? And if so, what does that mean? And if we were to recognize that we live in consciousness, how would that help us to find our way in this life? To attempt to answer this, take a look at the picture before you. The picture in this slide is an actual place in Greenville County, South Carolina. And yes, it really is this beautiful, and actually even more so in real life. It is commonly called Pretty Place and is also known as Sims Cathedral. It is truly a beautiful and inspiring place to commune with God and nature. If you look carefully at the beam above the cross, you will see a quote from Psalm 121, verse 1 from the Bible. I will lift up my eyes to the hills. This psalm is commonly read thus: I lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. It is interesting that the word Lord is all uppercase. According to some context instructions of this version of the King James Bible, when the Lord is all uppercase, it stands for the Hebrew word of God, Yod-Heh Vav-Heh. This Hebrew interpretation can denote a living God in the here and now, within us, all around us, at the ready to help and inspire us through life's vicissitudes. In other words, this ancient verse is encouraging you to look within yourself for guidance. It is not speaking of a distant, static ruler being outside of us. As mystics, we are striving to have throughout our days a direct communion with this living God of our hearts. We look toward the hills, at the exquisite beauty of nature as we see here. And our consciousness cannot help but to marvel and feel closer to our Creator, and to approach the selfless love that the God of our hearts continues to pour forth. And if we sit in repose and gratitude, that feeling of love becomes more and more apparent. The beauty of this scene is also a reminder that while we are here on earth, our consciousness creates a divine union with our surroundings. There is an argument to be made that all things are conscious. Through quantum observation, we know that nature reacts to our observation of her. She is a living, breathing, changing expression of the divine, and she receives and reacts to our admiration. Within our Amorc and traditional Martinist order teachings, we understand and work with the importance of recognizing and sending gratitude to every cell of our body and to all things in nature. Finding time for this is essential for our evolution. Obviously, we have many experiences and attachments that are not beautiful, serene, and inspiring like this, but having moments to marvel at the beauty all around us reveals that through consciousness, we are in a relationship with matter and all life forms, for they have a spiritual origin as we do. Our consciousness makes a connection with everything in this material world, for everything, including matter, is spiritual in nature, a gift of our Creator. It is our duty, our place as human beings, to place our awareness into this world, to observe her, and to discover her secrets. Now, if you would, close your eyes for a moment. When we close our eyes, we can also lift up our eyes to the mountains. We can see into and make a connection with our world and ultimately with our true home. Sometimes we close our eyes for a brief respite from our surroundings. Sometimes to pray, meditate, dream, or imagine, to create and think. Just explore for a moment that which comes to you now with your eyes closed. You are the master here of that which you choose to see, create, and experience. What a wondrous world we find when we close our eyes. We can see beyond sight, hear beyond hearing. If this world were only physical, closing our eyes, sitting in a dark, quiet room away from physical distraction, should not heighten our perceptions. Yet often it does just that. With our eyes closed, we can travel through time and space more readily and more easily than when attempting these things physically. Further, in our mind's eye, we can travel to the past and relive an event or see and talk to a person that touched us. We can recite new outcomes of past experiences if we wish. And we can also travel to the future and recite outcomes we hope for then. We can recognize a powerful reality with our eyes closed, and that is that we indeed live in consciousness, that the universe is mental, and that we help to shape it through our awareness and our participation in its movement. You can open your eyes when you're ready. Mysticism, as stated before, is an integral part of humanity's journey, and mystical thought is becoming more mainstream. A strong personal life can be a strong asset in professional life. We have preconceived notions that our personal life can't fit into our business life, so we set much of ourselves aside. In a business book entitled Discover Your True North by Bill George, he interviews a number of successful executives and their experiences with spirituality in the workplace. One person interviewed stated, "I was at a spiritual retreat, but I was afraid to tell my boss where I was going. So I set up a special arrangement with my secretary to contact me if he called during the retreat. I was more focused on managing my boss's image of me than on being myself. I perceived it was acceptable to tell him I was golfing, but not to tell him I was growing spiritually." Later on, this person relates that they grew past this reluctance, and their spiritual growth became an integral part of their business growth. By shifting focus from self to serving others, this person made the transformation from I to we and became a very successful business leader. This leads us back to Julian Johnson's presentation on Monday, where we examined that if we take care of our spiritual life, we automatically take care of the material self. We place importance on things that really are not important in the way that we think they are. It is imperative that our spiritual advancements become a working part of who we are. Mystical practices can become a guide in every aspect of our lives if we open up to them. Some principles may seem remote to what we call our daily lives, but are actually a part of it. As an example, at one of our last TMO meetings, we touched upon the principles, and just barely touched upon them, of Lurianic Kabbalah. An element of this practice states that the divine, rather than emanating creation, actually withdrew a part of itself, creating a void to allow room for creation. Into this void, the divine sent light that began to fill the vessels of consciousness. However, the vessels could not or would not hold the light and shattered into many pieces. Remnants of these broken vessels and a portion of their initial light remained like burning embers, creating a region of trial and error and giving humanity an opportunity to repair these vessels. Now, this may at first seem arcane, but let's place our consciousness within this concept. When we do that, we can see that it is we who must withdraw our ego to create a quiet void within and make room for spiritual growth. This is the practice of silencing the mind to become receptive to divine inspiration. It is up to us to consciously create this void and to fill it with the light of spirituality. Another way to create and fill this void is to look back upon each day before going to sleep. Try to relive the events of the day and mentally grade yourself on how you reacted, how kind or harsh you may have been, and so forth. Where you see a shattered vessel, or in other words, where perhaps you failed in your conduct, fill that void with a new light. Recognize it as an opportunity for you to advance spiritually. If you practice this simple exercise each night, you will begin to see your conscious development more clearly, and it will also make you more aware of your actions during your waking hours. Further, it gives you the opportunity to strengthen your egregore and the egregore of the mystical world by filling it in your mind with patience, understanding, kindness, and strength. When we speak of quieting the mind, we often think of meditation and its importance. Learn to practice this anywhere. In a healing degree of the Rosicrucian Order Amorc, there is a statement that reads, "The best way to maintain good health is to submit one's physical self to the spiritual self. In other words, to place the cerebrospinal nervous system at the disposal of the autonomic nervous system." That's allowing a more spiritual part of us to guide us in life. This is accomplished through practice, not only when we sit in the quiet of our sanctums, but also when we are going through our normal actions during the day. Practice both prayer and meditation throughout your day. In the middle of meetings, when riding a bike, whatever the case may be. Make it a part of you and constantly create and fill that void with spiritual practice. We often talk about peace. What do you do about peace? We state that history repeats itself, repeats itself. And we study history and often say we study it so that it doesn't repeat. But what about you personally? Do you allow your history to repeat itself within you? If you are harboring anger from your past, perhaps you are more prone to repeat what led to that anger in the form of revenge or perhaps your own mental suffering. We see entire nations and governments do this. Most governments the world over use past history as a pretext for invading another country. Do you do this with your own personal life? Only you can create peace, fratres and sorors, dear friends. Create a loving void for yourself to fill with peace. Take those difficult things that you can't let go of and allow them to submerge into the love of the cosmic mind and emerge as strength for you to carry on your mission. As human beings, we are living a finite life in a finite body. If we can see past this illusion, we can see that we are actually living in an infinite and eternal state. Even the world that we find ourselves in is a world of infinite possibilities. We need to transmute our consciousness to recognize this higher actuality. All things are created and contained within you, for the real you lives in consciousness, and that consciousness is eternal and connected to the infinite. At the beginning of this talk, we expressed a hope that through an understanding of consciousness, we might build a greater compassion towards one another and a more loving humanistic approach to life. Our order published a positio in 2001 that speaks towards this. Quote, "Our conception of spirituality is based upon the conviction that God exists as an absolute intelligence, having created the universe and everything therein, and on the assurance that each human being possesses a soul which emanates from God. God manifests in all creation through laws that we must study, understand, and respect. Humanity is evolving toward the realization of a divine plan and is destined to create an ideal society upon earth. This spiritualistic humanism may seem utopian. However, we concur with Plato when he stated in the Republic, utopia is the form of ideal society. Perhaps it is impossible to achieve it on earth, and yet a wise man must place all his hopes in it." Unquote. Fratres and sorors, dear friends, may each of us turn towards that benevolent light where we place our ideal hopes. And may that light forever guide us to find our way to perfect harmony with the cosmic. To close this evening, I leave you with the following verse. Our source of sense, from whence it appears, from friends or family or wandering peers? No. 'Tis only what one utterance of virtue have we. From the depths resounds our soul that sings. Her torch does light the shadowed walls to guide us through our holy halls. Beckons one answer from the muddled fight. To the wise I shine this August light. Consciousness endowed all around we see, her beauty ascribed abundantly. With a solitary breath upon us we abound, with a light from heaven handed down. Thank you, fratres and sorors, and I wish you a very pleasant evening. Good night.